Dear one, if you've been feeling stuck, it doesn't mean you're failing. It may simply mean your soul is ready for a new way. I want you to hear that gently, right now, because so many sweet, sensitive people think, if I were stronger, I would already be different. And that thought can feel so heavy, as if you're carrying a suitcase full of old beliefs up a mountain you didn't even choose. But sweetheart, you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not too late. Often what you're calling stuck is simply a place where your heart has outgrown an old pattern, and life is whispering, very softly, it's time. Not time to force yourself, not time to shame yourself, time to become willing. Willingness is one of the most loving powers I know. It doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't require you to have it all figured out. It simply says, I am open. And when you become open, life has room to respond. If you've been longing for change, more peace, more ease, more self-respect, more harmony, then let me sit with you here as a gentle friend. Let me remind you of something beautiful I've learned. When you are willing to change, life can begin to transform in ways you never expected. Not always instantly, not always in one dramatic moment, but steadily, tenderly, like dawn arriving. So take a slow breath with me, just one. And as you breathe, let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw relax. Let your heart unclench, just a little. And if you can, whisper this to yourself, even if you don't fully believe it yet. I am willing to see this differently. That's all. That's enough to begin. So many of us say we want change, and then we hold our breath when it arrives. We want a new life, but we also want the old life to feel safe. We want to feel better, but we don't want to feel uncertain. We want freedom, but we don't want to step out of what we know. And I understand that. I truly do. Because the familiar, even when it hurts, can feel like a strange kind of comfort. At least we know what to expect. At least we know how to survive it. And the mind, dear one, loves predictability. The mind says, stay here, it's known. Even if the heart is quietly crying, there must be more. Have you ever noticed that? How you can be unhappy and still resist change, not because you're weak, not because you enjoy suffering, but because part of you is trying to keep you safe the only way it knows how. So I want to begin by giving you permission. You don't have to bully yourself into transformation. You don't have to prove anything to life. You don't have to change by force. Real change, the kind that lasts, begins with kindness. It begins when you stop fighting yourself and start listening to yourself. It begins when you treat your fear with compassion instead of contempt. Sometimes people think willingness means you have to be brave all the time. No, sweetheart. Willingness means you are willing to take one small step, even while you are afraid. It means you are willing to loosen your grip on the old story, just a little, not all at once. I've learned that when we demand certainty before we move forward, we remain in the same place. Because certainty often comes after we begin, not before. And here is something else I know. Life responds to the energy of openness. When you soften your inner no and you allow a gentle maybe, new ideas can enter, new support can appear, new opportunities can be noticed. Sometimes you don't even realize how many doors have been around you until you stop leaning your whole body against them. So let's do a tiny practice together right now. Place one hand on your heart if that feels comfortable, and simply say, I am willing to change. And then, even more gently, I am willing to start where I am. And then, I am willing to see this differently. Take a breath and let those words land. You don't have to make them true. You only have to be willing to consider them. because willingness is a doorway, and you only have to open it an inch to let new light in. Willingness is not a leap. It's a small door you open, just an inch to let new light in. I love that image. I see it so clearly. A door that has been closed for a long time, not because you didn't deserve joy, but because you were protecting yourself. And one day, you touch the handle. You feel the possibility. You don't fling it wide open. You don't force anything. You just open it a little, and a thin line of light enters the room, and the room begins to change. That's what willingness does. It lets the light in. Many people think transformation requires a dramatic personality overhaul. They say, I have to become a totally different person. But that can feel terrifying, and it isn't true. You don't have to become someone else. You simply return to who you truly are underneath the old fear. You are already worthy, and you are already lovable. You are already enough. Change is not about fixing a defective you. Change is about releasing what is not you. And so often what we need is not more effort. What we need is a new relationship with ourselves, a kinder relationship, a more patient one. Let me share something I discovered in my own journey. I used to believe that change had to hurt. I thought if I didn't suffer, I wasn't growing. I thought struggle was proof of progress. And I met so many people who felt the same. They would punish themselves with harsh thoughts, thinking they were motivating themselves. But sweetheart, harshness does not heal. Harshness may push you for a moment, but it does not nourish you for the long journey. What I learned is that we change faster when we feel safe. When you feel safe inside yourself, you can try something new. When you feel safe, you can admit the truth. When you feel safe, you can ask for help. So if change feels hard right now, I want you to ask yourself this very gentle question. What would make this feel safer for me? Not easier, safer. Would it be a smaller step? Would it be more rest? Would it be more support? Would it be speaking more kindly to yourself? Would it be letting go of unrealistic timelines? Sometimes the most healing change you can make is to stop rushing yourself. And I want to offer you a daily tool, something simple, something doable. Each morning, before you touch your phone, before you run into the day, place your feet on the floor and say, today I open the door a little. Today I let in a little more light. Today I am willing to see this differently. And then choose one small action that matches that willingness. One small thing, a glass of water, a 5-minute walk, a kind boundary, a loving no, a brave yes, a deep breath before you respond. When you do one small willing thing each day, you begin to trust yourself again. And trust, dear one, is the soil where transformation grows. Often the hardest thing to change is not our life. It's the story we tell ourselves about our life. Because the story becomes a lens. And when you look through that lens, you see the world in a certain way. You interpret everything through it. You find evidence for it again and again. If your story is nothing works out for me, you will notice every disappointment more than every blessing. If your story is I'm too much, you will shrink the moment you feel joy. If your story is I always mess up, you will hesitate before you even begin. The mind is powerful, it is creative, and it will paint your world with the colors of your beliefs. But here is the good news. Stories can be rewritten, and you don't rewrite them by arguing with yourself. You rewrite them by offering yourself a new thought, gently, repeatedly, like placing a new stone on a path you want to walk. Have you ever walked in a garden and noticed a little gate? Sometimes it's rusty, sometimes it's hidden behind vines, but when you find it and open it, you realize there's a whole new section of the garden you never knew existed. Your willingness is like that. It opens an inner gate. Now, a very important part of this is learning to notice the moment you are repeating the old story, not to judge yourself, just to notice. Awareness is love. Awareness is the beginning of change. When you catch yourself in an old thought, try this practice. Pause, breathe, and say softly, I am willing to see this differently. Then ask, what is another possibility here? That question is magic, not because it guarantees a specific outcome, but because it shifts your nervous system from tightness to openness. It moves you from reaction into choice, and choice is where your power lives. I have learned that we don't change by fighting the old story. We change by feeding the new one. If you want a new garden, you don't spend all day yelling at the weeds. You plant, you water, you tend. So let's plant something now. A new story might sound like, I am learning, I am growing, I am allowed to begin again. Life can surprise me in good ways. I don't need to have it all figured out today. And if you feel resistance, good. That means you touch the place that's ready for healing. Resistance isn't a sign to quit. It's a sign to be gentle. Try saying, even though part of me resists change, I am willing to love myself through it. That is a grown-up spiritual truth. That is real compassion. Your body and your emotions listen closely to the words you repeat, especially the quiet ones. The words you say in your mind when no one else is listening. The labels you place on yourself. The way you describe your life. And many people don't realize this, dear one. Your body responds to your thoughts the way the earth responds to the weather. If you live under a constant storm of self-criticism, your system tightens. It braces. It tries to protect you. Over time, that can feel exhausting. Now, I want to be clear and loving here. What I'm sharing is about the mind-body connection and the power of inner kindness. It is not a replacement for professional support when you need it, but it is a tool, one that many have found deeply helpful over time. When you speak to yourself with love, your body can soften. When you give yourself permission to feel, emotions can move through. When you stop shaming yourself, you stop adding pain to pain. Sometimes people think affirmations are just nice words, but affirmations are not meant to be a performance. They are meant to be a new environment for your mind, a new climate. If you've been living in emotional winter for a long time, cold, tense, defensive, then loving thoughts are like the first warm day of spring. You may not bloom instantly, but the thaw begins. Here's a simple practice I adore. When you notice tension, maybe in your chest, your stomach, your throat, pause and ask, what am I telling myself right now? Then choose one kinder sentence. Not a huge leap, just kinder. Instead of I can't handle this, try I am learning to handle this one step at a time. Instead of I'm failing, try I am in a process and it's okay. Instead of nothing ever changes, try I am willing to create a new pattern. I am willing to see this differently. And if you want to make it even more powerful, add touch. Put your hand on your heart or your cheek. Your nervous system understands kindness through sensation, like a child who calms when you hold them. Then whisper, it's safe to change gently. It's safe to grow slowly. It's safe to begin again. You don't have to do this perfectly. You only have to do it lovingly. And if your mind argues, let it argue. You don't have to wrestle it. You can simply keep choosing love, like returning a boat to the center of the river, again and again. Forgiveness is not approving the past, it's releasing yourself from carrying it into the future. And this is where so many transformations begin, because the past can cling to us like old vines, wrapping around our beliefs, our choices, our expectations. Some people think, I can't change because what happened to me changed me. And yes, experiences shape us, but they do not have to imprison us. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It says, I am not going to let yesterday keep writing my tomorrow. And forgiveness is not something you force. It is something you grow into. Sometimes you start with willingness. You say, I am willing to consider forgiveness. I am willing to loosen my grip. I am willing to release a little. Do you see? Again, a door opens an inch. I have learned that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and hoping someone else gets sick. It keeps you tied to the very thing you want to move beyond. It keeps you in a conversation with the past, even when your life is calling you forward. Now, forgiveness doesn't mean you say what happened was okay. It doesn't mean you must invite someone back into your life. Boundaries can still be sacred. Forgiveness is about your freedom. So here's a gentle practice. Close your eyes for a moment, if you can. Picture a river, a calm river, and on the surface of the river there are little leaves floating by. Each leaf is a memory, an old hurt, a regret, a moment you replay. You do not have to dive into the river and wrestle the leaves. You can sit on the bank and watch them float away. And you can say, I release you. I bless you. I set myself free. I am willing to see this differently. If that feels too big, start smaller. Say, I am willing to stop punishing myself for what I didn't know then. Because, sweetheart, you were doing the best you could with the awareness you had. We are all learning. We are all growing. And when you forgive yourself, you stop dragging the old weight into new rooms. You walk lighter. You choose differently. You breathe differently. Sometimes the transformation you're seeking isn't about changing your whole life. It's about dropping what you were never meant to carry. When you begin to treat yourself like someone you love, your choices start to change naturally. This is one of the most beautiful truths I know. Self-love is not a luxury. It is not vanity. It is the foundation. Because when you love yourself, you stop settling for crumbs. When you love yourself, you speak your truth more gently and more clearly. When you love yourself, you rest without guilt. When you love yourself, you become willing to grow because you believe you're worth the effort. And many people misunderstand self-love. They think it means you're confident all the time or you never doubt. No, dear one. Self-love means you stay on your own side. Even when you're messy, even when you're learning, even when you've had a hard day. I discovered this in my own life. The moment I stopped attacking myself, life began to feel more workable. I could actually hear my intuition. I could make choices from clarity instead of panic. My inner world became a kinder home. And I want that for you. I want your inner world to feel like a home you can rest in. So here is a very practical practice, and it is simple enough to do today. Pick one area where you have been unkind to yourself. Just one. Maybe it's your body. Maybe it's your productivity. Maybe it's your past. Maybe it's your emotions. Then ask, what would I say to a dear friend in my situation? And then, this is the important part, say it to yourself. Not once, not as a performance, but as a practice. You might say, sweetheart, you're doing your best. Gentle soul, you're allowed to take your time. Dear one, you don't have to earn rest. And then add an affirmation. I choose to support myself with love. I choose to speak kindly to myself. I choose to change in a way that feels safe. I am willing to see this differently. This is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about choosing a new relationship with yourself, one that makes growth possible. Because the life you want is built on the way you treat yourself when no one is watching. Life transforms when you practice trust in small moments, one thought, one breath, one choice at a time. And I want you to remember this. Transformation is not one grand event. It is a series of small returns. You return to your breath. You return to love. You return to the present. You return to willingness. Sometimes you will take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That doesn't mean you're failing. That means you are human. A river does not apologize for bending. It does not say, I should have been straight. It flows around rocks. It adjusts. It continues, and it still reaches the ocean. You can be like that, dear one. You can bend without breaking. You can adjust without shaming yourself. You can keep moving. And if you want a simple way to practice this, try a willingness check-in 3 times a day. Morning. What am I willing to release today? Midday. What am I willing to choose today? Evening. What am I willing to appreciate today? These are small questions, but they train your mind to look for movement instead of stagnation. They teach you that change is not a threat. It is a natural part of life. And when fear appears, and it will, hold it gently. Say, hello, fear, I see you. And then, I am willing to move with you, not against you. I am willing to see this differently. Because fear often softens when it feels acknowledged. It doesn't need you to be fearless. It needs you to be present. Now, there's another layer to this that I love to share. Life often transforms after we stop insisting it transform on our timeline. When you stop gripping and start allowing, you may notice life guiding you in subtle ways. You may notice new ideas, new people, new invitations, not because the universe is a vending machine, but because your mind is open enough to see what was always there. Openness changes perception. Perception changes choices. Choices change outcomes. And this is how transformation becomes real, through consistent inner shifts that gently reshape your outer life. So let's bring this home now, sweetheart, in a way you can carry with you. Take a gentle breath and remember what we've walked through together. Willingness is a door you open an inch. A new story can replace an old story. Your body listens to your inner words. Forgiveness frees your future. Self-love makes change feel safe. Trust is practiced in small moments. You don't have to transform overnight. You only have to begin again with kindness. Now I invite you into a final practice, something simple, something soothing. Place your hand on your heart again and softly say these words, I am willing to change. I am willing to grow. I am willing to let life support me. I am willing to release what no longer serves me. I am willing to see this differently. And now add this. I choose love today. I choose peace today. I choose to treat myself with kindness. I choose one small willing step. Feel that. Let it settle. If your mind says, but what if I can't? You can answer with love. I don't have to do it all at once. I only have to do one small thing, and that one small thing, done with love, can begin to transform your whole life over time. Because change is not something you chase. Change is something you allow. And you, dear one, are allowed. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to choose again. You are allowed to become someone who lives with more ease. You are allowed to open the door. So as you move into the rest of your day, I want you to carry this with you like a warm light in your pocket. Whenever you feel stuck, whenever you feel afraid, whenever you feel tempted to return to the old story, pause and whisper, I am willing to see this differently. And then take one gentle step. Life hears willingness. Your heart hears willingness, and little by little, sweetheart, life can transform. I send you so much love, and I believe in your beautiful journey.